A poor-looking old man walked into Unity Trust Bank, dressed in torn clothes. Everyone laughed at him. They called him a beggar. They mocked him. But when he dropped his rough bag on the marble floor and said, "This bank belongs to me," the world inside that bank would change forever. This is the story of Pa Jonah Kalu, the silenced founder who refused to stay silent. It was a hot afternoon in Lagos. Inside the big Unity Trust Bank at Lekki Phase 1, everything was quiet. People stood in line, waiting to do their transactions. The air smelled like new money and floor polish. Then, the doors opened, and an old man walked in. He wore a long brown coat full of patches. His shoes were torn. His grey hair stuck out in different directions. His face had deep lines, and he walked slowly, carrying a rough, torn bag over his shoulder. The people inside the bank stared at him. A woman wearing shiny gold jewelry and high heels pulled her handbag close to her chest. Her name was Madam Adibimp. "Who let this beggar inside?" she whispered to another woman. Behind the counter, two young tellers laughed quietly. Their names were Io Bello and Ngozi Ayib. "Maybe he thinks this is a shelter," Io joked. "Or maybe he wants to sleep here," Ngozi giggled. But the old man didn't look at them. He walked to the middle of the bank and stopped. Everyone turned to look. A tall security guard in a neat uniform started walking toward him. His name was Inspector Say Falana. His face was serious and angry. He rested one hand on his belt. "Old man," Say said loudly, "you're in the wrong place. This is not a charity house." The old man lifted his head. His eyes were sharp and strong. "This bank belongs to me," he said calmly. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then, the whole bank burst into laughter. "Did you hear that?" Madam Adibimp said. "He thinks he owns Unity Trust Bank." Inspector Say shook his head and moved closer. "Ogre, if you don't leave now, I will throw you out," he said. The old man's voice stayed strong. "I am not here to beg," he said. "I came to reclaim what is mine." Everyone stared at him. Some people covered their mouths to hide their laughter. Some shook their heads. From behind the counter, the bank manager, Mr. Tunde Balagan, stepped forward. He wore a black suit and shiny shoes. His face was serious. "Sir," Mr. Tunde said politely, "you are mistaken. This bank was founded by the Okonkwo family. Maybe you are confused." The old man shook his head slowly. "I am not confused," he said. "My name is Pa Jonah Kalu. I built this bank many years ago before it was stolen from me." People began whispering among themselves. Mr. Tunde looked at Inspector Say and gave a small nod. "Please escort him out," Mr. Tunde said. Inspector Say took a step forward. "Leave now, old man," he barked. Pa Jonah Kalu gently placed his torn bag on the floor. "I have proof," he said. "I will show you." Inspector Say frowned. "We don't have time for this," he said. But Pa Jonah bent down slowly. His hands were shaking a little, but he moved carefully. He started to open the bag. "Stop him!" Madam Adibimp cried out. "He might have something dangerous." But Pa Jonah's voice was calm. "There is nothing to fear," he said. "Inside this bag is the truth." Everyone leaned forward, curious. What could an old man like him have? Io whispered. Pa Jonah looked around the bank. His voice was strong. "I have waited too long for this day," he said. "And today, I will show you all who I am." And with that, he untied the strings of his bag. The old bag sat on the shiny floor of Unity Trust Bank. Everyone watched in silence. No one was laughing now. Even Inspector Say Falana stood still, his hand close to his belt. Pa Jonah Kalu opened the bag slowly. Out came something strange, a very old brown book. The leather cover was cracked and faded. The gold letters on the front were almost gone, but you could still read. Unity Trust Bank, 1952. Gasps filled the air. Mr. Tunde Balagan stepped closer. "What is that?" he asked sharply. Pa Jonah Kalu held the book up high so everyone could see. "This," he said, "is the first ledger of this bank. I wrote every word in it with my own hand." Madam Adibimp shook her head in disbelief. Impossible, she said. An old man like you, owner of Unity Trust Bank. Pa Jonah did not argue. He opened the ledger carefully. The pages were yellow and thin. He turned to the first page and pointed. Look here, he said. My name, Jonah C. Kalu. And next to me, Jonah Kalu. We built this bank together. Mr. Tunde frowned deeply. He bent forward to look. Everyone else tried to peek too. It could be fake, Inspector Say said, folding his arms. It is not fake, Pa Jonah said calmly. I have carried this book for over 50 years, waiting for the right time. He reached into the bag again and brought out a bundle of very old Naira notes. The notes looked ancient, the paper was soft and yellow. They had the first logo of Unity Trust Bank printed on them. These are the first profits we ever made, Pa Jonah said. Money we earned through hard work. Iobello stepped back, his eyes wide. This is serious, he whispered to Ngozi Ayib. Ngozi nodded, biting her lip. Mr. Tunde looked at the bundle of old money. His face changed. He looked worried now, not angry. Sir, Mr. Tunde said carefully, if what you say is true, why is your name not in our records? Pa Jonah smiled sadly. Because after we built the bank, he said, they forced me out. They erased my name because of the color of my skin. They said a man like me could never own a bank. A heavy silence fell over the room. Even the customers who once laughed were now quiet. Inspector Say shook his head stubbornly. Anybody can say anything, he barked. Where is the real proof? Pa Jonah looked at him without fear. I have more, he said. Slowly, Pa Jonah pulled out another item, a black and white photograph. In it, a young Pa Jonah and Jonah Kalu stood smiling in front of a tiny bank office. The sign above them read, Unity Trust Bank, founded by Kalu and Kalu. He held up the picture for all to see. I am not here to fight, Pa Jonah said. I am here for the truth. Mr. Tunde rubbed his forehead. He looked at the ledger, the money, the photograph. It was too much to ignore. Inspector Say, Mr. Tunde said quietly, stand down. But sir, Say protested. I said stand down, Tunde repeated firmly. Say slowly stepped back. Pa Jonah placed the book and the photograph on the counter carefully. I have waited my whole life for this, he said softly. And today, my story will be heard. Everyone in the bank stood frozen, listening. No one laughed anymore. No one moved. The truth was finally waking up. The air inside Unity Trust Bank was heavy. Everyone stood still, staring at Pa Jonah Kalu, the old ledger, the bundles of faded money, and the black and white photograph. Mr. Tunde Balagan picked up the photograph with careful hands. He looked at the young smiling faces in the old picture. This is unbelievable, he muttered. Pa Jonah stood tall, even though his back was bent with age. You erased me, he said. You erased my dreams, my work, my name. Iobello stepped closer, whispering to Ngozi Ayib. But why would they do that? Io asked. Ngozi shook her head sadly. Because he was not rich. Because he was not from a powerful family, Ngozi said. Pa Jonah heard them. He nodded slowly. Back then, Pa Jonah said, a man like me could build a dream. But powerful people didn't want to share success with someone like me. He paused, breathing deeply. They lied. They pushed me out. They removed my name from every paper, every record. It was like I never existed. Madam Adibimp shook her head, still not sure what to believe. But sir, she said, people don't just disappear from history. Pa Jonah's voice became stronger. When you have money and power, he said, you can erase anyone. He opened the ledger again and showed them a page where two names were written. A Jonah C. Kalu. Jonah Kalu. Here is my name, Pa Jonah said. Clear and strong. Mr. Tunde leaned closer. His mouth became dry. It's the same handwriting as the other records, Tunde said in shock. Pa Jonah pointed again. They erased my name from the modern books. But they could not erase the truth from this ledger. I kept it hidden all these years. Inspector Say Falana crossed his arms stubbornly. Anybody can forge a book, he said. Maybe you wrote that yourself. Pa Jonah looked straight into Say's eyes. If I forged it, why would the old money match? Why would the photograph match? Why would my name appear again and again? Say looked away, not answering. Silence filled the bank again. One customer, a young man wearing a school uniform, stepped forward. I believe him, the boy said. His mother pulled him back, but others started nodding too. Iobello looked at Mr. Tunde. Sir, he said, voice shaking, what do we do? Mr. Tunde looked confused and worried. His hands trembled slightly. We must check properly, he said. We must not ignore this. Pa Jonah gently closed the ledger and placed it on the counter. I didn't come for money, he said. I didn't come for revenge. I came for the truth. Tunde swallowed hard. He had never faced something like this before. All right, Tunde said slowly. I will take the ledger and the photograph to the board of directors. We must investigate this. Inspector Say scowled but said nothing. Pa Jonah nodded once. Thank you, he said quietly. For the first time since he entered Unity Trust Bank, someone had listened. Not everyone believed him yet, but a door had opened. The big hall of Unity Trust Bank stayed very quiet. Pa Jonah Kalu stood by the counter. The old ledger and photograph lay in front of Mr. Tunde Balagan. Everyone watched, waiting. Inspector Say Falana still looked angry. He shook his head and folded his arms tightly. This is all a waste of time, Say said loudly. We should call the police. No, Mr. Tunde said firmly. We must handle this with respect. A few people nodded quietly. Then something surprising happened. Ngozi Ayib, the young teller, stepped forward. Her hands were shaking, but she lifted her chin. I believe you, sir, Ngozi said, looking at Pa Jonah. I believe your story. The bank became even quieter. You could hear the ticking clock on the wall. Inspector Say frowned at her. You are too soft, he said. But Ngozi stood strong. My grandfather told me stories like this, Ngozi said. Good men pushed away because of greed and lies. I will not stay silent. Pa Jonah smiled gently at her. Thank you, my child, he said. Next, Iobello took a deep breath and stepped forward too. I am sorry, sir, Io said. Earlier I laughed. But now, I see you are telling the truth. Please forgive me. Pa Jonah nodded slowly. You are forgiven, he said kindly. More customers started whispering among themselves. Some shook their heads sadly. Some looked down, ashamed. Mr. Tunde Balagan straightened his suit. I must call the board members, he said. They need to see this evidence. He turned to Pa Jonah. Sir, will you allow me to keep the ledger and photograph safe until they arrive? Pa Jonah thought for a moment, then nodded. I trust you, he said. But please, protect them well. They are my life's story. I will, Tunde promised. Inspector Say still looked very unhappy. This is not right, Say muttered. One old paper and everybody is believing him. Ngozi faced him bravely. Sometimes one piece of paper carries more truth than 1,000 lies, she said softly. The customers clapped lightly. Even Madam Adibimp, who earlier looked down on Pa Jonah, folded her hands and said, May God forgive us. Pa Jonah picked up the torn bag and slung it over his shoulder. I waited many years for this day, he said. Even if only one person believes me, it is enough. Mr. Tunde looked at him seriously. No, Pa Jonah, he said. Many of us believe you now. And soon, the whole world will know the truth. Outside, the sun was starting to set. The golden light shone through the bank's glass doors, casting long shadows across the floor. Inside, something bigger than banking was happening. The truth was beginning to rise. The next morning, Lagos woke up to a big surprise. Everywhere, on TV, on the radio, and on phones, people were talking about the old man who walked into Unity Trust Bank and said, This bank belongs to me. News reporters showed pictures of Pa Jonah Kalu, his old ledger, the faded bundles of money, and the black and white photograph. Some people believed him. Some didn't. But everyone was talking. At Unity Trust Bank, things changed quickly. Outside the building, a crowd started gathering. Some people carried signs that said, "We stand with Pa Jonah, truth must be heard." Some came to protest. Some came just to watch. Inside the bank, Mr. Tunde Balagan sat in his office, his face serious. He was reading messages from the board of directors. They were angry. Chairman Okonkwo, the grandson of John Okonkwo, the co-founder who had betrayed Pa Jonah, sent a strong warning. "This nonsense must stop immediately," the chairman's message said. "If you cannot control it, we will replace you." Mr. Tunde sighed deeply. He knew the board wanted to protect their name, not the truth. Evelyn Carter, the young teller, entered his office. She was one of those who had stood with Pa Jonah. "Sir," Evelyn said, "people outside want to speak with Pa Jonah." "Where is he?" Tunde asked. "He's sitting in the lobby, waiting," she replied. Tunde nodded. "Tell him I'm coming." In the lobby, Pa Jonah sat quietly on a bench. His old brown coat still covered him. His rough bag rested beside his feet. Children pointed at him through the bank's glass doors. "Is that the man who built the bank?" one small boy asked his mother. "Yes," the mother said. "He is very brave." Mr. Tunde walked to Pa Jonah and sat beside him. "Sir," he said, "the board is angry. They will try to stop you." Pa Jonah smiled gently. "I expected that," he said. Tunde lowered his voice. "They will bring lawyers. They will call you a liar. They will say you have no proof." Pa Jonah's eyes shone. "I have the ledger," he said. "I have the old money. I have the truth. That is enough." More employees started coming into the lobby. Ngozi Ayib, Ayo Bello, Evelyn Carter, even a few customers who were inside yesterday. They all stood around Pa Jonah. "We are with you," Evelyn said bravely. "You are not alone," said Ayo. Outside, the crowd grew bigger. Some protesters began shouting, "Give Pa Jonah justice. Return his bank." Inside, Inspector Say Falana watched everything from the corner. He still didn't like it, but even he could see that something important was happening. Mr. Tunde turned to Pa Jonah. "I will send the documents to the court today," he said. "The judges must see everything." Pa Jonah nodded slowly. "This is not just about me," he said. "It is about every person whose dreams were stolen." Tunde stood up straight. "We will fight with you," he said. Pa Jonah rose too, even though his knees were weak. His voice was strong. "Let the truth speak," he said. "Let it shine for everyone to see." And together, they faced the doors of the bank, where the crowd outside waited. The real battle had just begun. The news about Pa Jonah Kalu spread even faster. Newspapers called him the forgotten founder. TV stations showed his picture every hour. People from all over Nigeria talked about him. Some said he was lying. But most believed him. The streets outside Unity Trust Bank were full every day. People held signs. They sang songs. They shouted, "Justice for Pa Jonah. History must be corrected." Inside the bank, workers stayed busy. Mr. Tunde Balagan sent all the old papers, the money, the photograph, and the ledger to the court. The court called for a hearing. Pa Jonah Kalu stood before the judge. His brown coat looked even older, but he stood tall and proud. The judge was a serious woman named Justice Ifema Osei. She wore glasses and had gray hair. She looked at the ledger carefully. She touched the old money gently. She studied the black and white photograph. "Pa Jonah Kalu," the judge said, "your evidence is strong. Very strong." The courtroom was packed with people. Ngozi Ayib, Ayo Bello, Evelyn Carter, Mr. Tunde Balagan all were there, sitting close together. Inspector Say Falana stood at the back, watching silently. The lawyers for Chairman Okonkwo tried to argue. They said the ledger was fake. They said the money meant nothing. They said the photograph could not be trusted. But Pa Jonah's voice was calm and steady. "I built that bank with my hands," he said. "I was betrayed because of who I was. But the truth is alive, even after all these years." The judge listened carefully. Days passed. The city waited. Finally, Justice Ephema gave her judgment. I find, she said, her voice clear, that Pa Jonah Kalu was the true co-founder of Unity Trust Bank. Cheers erupted in the courtroom. Some people clapped. Some cried. Evelyn hugged Ngozi. Io jumped from his seat. Mr. Tunde Balogun smiled for the first time in many days. Even Inspector Seyi bowed his head slightly. Outside, the crowd celebrated. News spread across Nigeria and even beyond. Pa Jonah Kalu's name would never be forgotten again. The court ordered Unity Trust Bank to add Pa Jonah's name to the founding documents, build a statue of him in front of the bank, pay him for all the years his name was erased. But when reporters asked Pa Jonah what he wanted most, he smiled and said, "I don't want riches. I want my story told. I want children to know that the truth may be buried, but it cannot die." The reporters nodded and wrote down every word. Later, when the sun was setting, Pa Jonah stood outside the bank. The golden light touched his face. Evelyn Carter walked up to him. "Sir," she said softly, "thank you for teaching us to stand for what is right." Pa Jonah smiled warmly. "The truth," he said, "is stronger than any lie." He looked up at the sky. For many years, he had walked with heavy steps. But today, his steps were light. He was no longer just a forgotten man. He was a hero, a symbol, a light for generations to come. And the world would never erase his name again. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment and share.